It is December and everyone is leaving me. I check my phone and 2 of my friends are in California, 5 in Virginia, 1 in France. Winter break always arrives too soon, sharp teeth of cold nipping at my hands as I hug my friends goodbye. This is when people are leaving for real, not like in middle school when my friend Sarah got rezoned, and I could only see her during soccer practice on the weekends instead of every day in math. No, Madeline is moving to Texas for a real job, and now there's 500 miles and change between us, and I can't sneak up on her in the library like I used to. When I first met Madeline, I thought she was one of the coolest people alive. She was wearing a corduroy jacket and flowery embroidered jeans, sitting at a table working over her laptop. When the first question she asked me was whether I liked Hosier's new album, I knew that I wanted her to stay in my life forever. Madeline is a science whiz. She can work her way out of any coding assignment and through a calculus problem in 2 minutes. She can sing like an angel, cook without a recipe. She makes herself laugh and brings me to tears almost every time too. She's got a lion's mane of hair and a plethora of cutting advice that always works wonders. She is older, wiser, greater than me in every way. But as I've gotten to know her, I've discovered that the thing she's best at is making room for others. She'll step back in a circle of friends to let someone else in, or leave a seat at the table if you're running late. If you haven't spoken in a conversation, she'll ask what you think. She'll save you a plate of leftovers, hold the door open no matter how far in the distance you are, or let you nestle your chin in the crook of her neck, arms open to envelop your body. Her way of loving is leaving the door ajar. I'm watching Little Woman with my friend Daniel and trying to pay attention. It's the worst part of the movie. Beth has died and Jo is cradling her mother in agony, the screen tinged with somber shades of grief. While I usually would be sobbing, my mind is drifting toward all the assignments I have to do. Outside, the sun is setting and the wind is picking up. I have to walk home in the dark. I have to do my laundry. I have a final presentation worth 30% of my grade tomorrow. I'm tempted to pull my laptop out and finish a quiz, but Daniel's adamant that I continue watching. Daniel's my movie friend. When he heard I was in an indie film class this semester, his first response was one of both pure elation and subtle jealousy. He watches every new release from blockbuster to art house film, sends me texts about award nominations and beautiful cinematography. Most of the time I'm in his apartment, I'm watching a film he's raved about. Like most of my friends, he's a genius, or at least to me he is. Daniel is a mechanical engineering major, a phrase that I can't even begin to wrap my little writerly hands around. He's built rockets, he's done motor research, he tracks planes in his free time. But he also studies government, writes policy memos, argues law. In my heart, I wish he had the time to do everything that lives in his head. His presence is expansive, his passion boundless. Sometimes we're sitting in the same conversation, and I can feel his joy spill over into my hands. As Amy cries into Joe's shoulder on screen, Daniel clears his throat. You know, this is the last real college semester I'll have. Through his bedroom door, I can see the boxes he's packing for an internship, and I jolt up at the thought. Suddenly, tomorrow's assignments are half-open packages shoved to the back of my mind's closet. In my head, we're barely second years. In my head, I'm still stumbling around campus in search of a science lab or the post office, a child who needs to ask others to open jars and explain difficult math problems. I've barely known him for a year, but in my head, I make up reasons he should stay, reasons that everyone should stay. Next semester, I will have no one to whisper to in the back of rehearsal, no highly specific discussions about the details of a film score. When I listen to a lilting Joni Mitchell song, I will hear no floating harmony from another voice in my ear. I need someone to sling their arm around my shoulders and press me close when we're walking to a cafe across town. I need someone to call me at 11 p.m. and ask if I want to get greasy hamburgers. I need someone to complain to, someone to complain to me. I need the loosening stitches in the fabric of my life to hold fast. I think too much of our prospective endings and feel it eat away in my chest, tunnels of sorrow burrowing through my heart. I need you back. I need you here. I think of Madeline's gentleness and wonder if I am too combative. She says love is the work, keeping the light on until someone comes back home. Is it selfish or diligent to want someone to stay? I am telling Daniel about Madeline as the film ends, etching her face into the space between us. If I squint, I can almost see the curve of her jaw and the way she sits with one foot on her knee. I've already told Madeline about Daniel countless times, described an achievement he's accomplished in so little time, or tried to recreate a joke he told with the same wit and cadence. It's impossible, but I need to do it all the same. I can't help talking to the point of tangential familiarity. I don't say, "Oh, one of my friends," in conversation anymore because they've all heard about every other one. In my head, they've all met. In my head, they're all standing together in the kitchen, murmuring under a flickering fluorescent light, talking like they've known each other since birth. "She sounds fantastic," he says, when I've finished monologuing about our greatest hits. I smile. I know, you'd get along well. When I was 10, I moved back to Georgia after several years in the middle of nowhere, Alabama, left the only friends I'd known, a life of backyard capture the flag and swimming pool block parties, asphalt-scraped knees, and dandelion-colored afternoons. I cried on our first Christmas in our new town as I looked at our old house on Google Earth. I saw the house from above like a migrating oriole headed home for the winter and wanted to turn back around. I wrote about that moment in English class the next year for a short essay and never looked back. In 7th grade, my mom asked me to write a poem for my grandmother's funeral. In high school, I wrote letters to my friends during quarantine like a wife longing for a war-worn husband. Even now, I still write eulogies for friends who've moved for college or ones who I left in my hometown. If you trace your way through my writing, you'll find a road map of leaving, fingerprints I've dusted and saved, everything leading back to an instinctive scribbling of people and places. I source it from Little Woman, that dusty novel sitting on my parents' bookshelf that I read at 8 years old. I cracked it open and fell in love with the March Sisters, the tumult and toil of childhood. I wanted to be Amy, or Jo, a girl with ambition, a girl who makes her way through the world with purpose and resolve. Learning of Louisa May Alcott basing the book on her real life made me love it more, gave me a real-world literary role model like Jo March. Alcott wrote her way through loss, immortalized her sisters in a tomb of marbled literature, made them heroes in the literary canon. I've read it almost every year, growing alongside those girls, learning how to love and fight and survive. Even almost a decade later, sitting on Daniel's couch, I still think I am Jo, riding her way through tender tragedy with the ambition to breathe an absence back into life. Pages are scattered across the attic floor, a desperate attempt to keep wisps of a shadow from fading. Everyone leaves, one way or another. Meg through marriage, Amy through Lori, Beth through her ails, melting footprints in the snowfall of Jo's life. She is the bona fide expert on emptiness. Like me, she cannot comprehend how the world keeps spinning when her Beth is gone. Jo fondly fossilizes her sisters to make it all make sense, an act of understanding, an act of unraveling. She doesn't try to fill the void and suppress the pain. She keeps it alive, compressing this pulse of life. This is how I work. The cogs in the thrumming engine of my life are churning to a pause, and I am trying to write the museum placard for this relic of a machine. Even with this essay, I'm trying to preserve them, crystallize the space with words and shapes. I do not think it is particularly good, but I think it is enough. There's Jo, writing like her life depends on it, like Beth's life depends on it. Talk of absence, and you can only go over, under, around. I love you this much, I say, arms spread wide like wings. I love you one empty chair at the table much. There's room under my umbrella. There's a hand for you to hold. I whisper goodbye in the mirror and watch it take form, the momentary warmth of your breath on my cheek dissipating as you walk out the door. I push the shape of your name into every conversation, a twister of tongue teeth breaking into the sentence like wild horses. I build this ache. I can't help it. I think of Jo and Mr. Lawrence, Jo leaning on him as they share their gulfs of grief as Beth has passed. I need everyone else to know the outline of your frame, to imagine holding your absence, because I cannot be the only one gripping onto you. Jo says writing doesn't confer importance, it reflects it. But Amy says, I'm not sure. Perhaps writing will make them more important. And I hope to God she's right. The solidity of diction and syntax molding into place like amber around you is my only lifeline. I am worrying too much of endings. I'm trying to delay the disappearing, whether in 2 days or 2 years. I think of graduation looming on the horizon. I think of summer break next year or winter break this month. I tried to extrapolate the distance into the future. What happens when Stella moves back home next May and I no longer have her tinkling chime of a laugh soundtracking our conversations? What happens when Ria goes to England and leaves behind the ghost of her embrace? What happens when Tara graduates next year and I can only see her beaming smile through a screen? There are only so many words I can parse out before it is just me and a stuttering tongue, stumbling over synonym and muddling through metaphor. Enough. I know the emptiness is inevitable. I know there is still time, whether in the near or distant future, for you to come back. I know you will. The leaving is never the worst part. It's the waiting that's hard. I am trying to believe absence is love, preservation is passion, to satiate my care in the U-shaped space it craves. I am trying to write my way through. Love is how far I reach back over the abyss. No matter how deep the chasm, I am standing on the edge with my arms out. I am making up the spare room in the house of my body for you. I am seeing Madeline one last time before she leaves, getting lunch at our favorite sushi place for old time's sake. Before we walk inside, I stop to tie my shoe. When I look up, she's holding the door, halo of sun glancing softly around her chestnut hair, chin tilted to the right in a crooked half-smile. It's a look that I know I'll catch on a million strangers' faces and see her. Briefly, one blip, then gone. "Are you coming?" she asks, the crook of her elbow stuck out like a question mark, the space between her body beckoning so sweetly. Yes, I think, as I stand up and link arms with her. Yes, I love you too.